Hi there! Welcome to your weekly werewolf report, and this the year of the werewolf. We're back for another week during the massive reread of the Howling trilogy by Gary Brandner. So, last week I surprised myself by really enjoying my reread of the first The Howling book. Uh, Not so this week, you guys. I'm really sorry to have to break this to you, but I didn't like the second book in the trilogy at all. But buckle in because I'll explain to you why. I'll try to go slow again to break it down. The future version of me that edits these, woe is her existence because I keep mixing up book and movie in these rants. But I'm going to try to go slow and make sure I hit the points that I wanted to hit when I talk about why I didn't like this book. There's still high hopes for book 3. Still, daring to hope, be optimistic, but I do have a movie to talk about. I found a good movie. So let's get right down to it. So, book 2, The Howling II. This one was put out in 1979, so we're still not in the 80s yet. And let me tell I didn't like this book. And it's not... It was just kind of a dud, if I'm being perfectly honest. When all is said and done, it just kind of... for me. I don't know how you spell but that's what I think of the book. So, I was wrong last week because I said we go international with this one. And I mean, we technically do. We go to Mexico, but I could have swore you go to Eastern Europe in one of these books. Maybe that's the third. My memory of the first read isn't reliable. I think we can we can be certain of that at this point. But I think after having read 2 of these books in succession, I can say with some confidence that I don't care for how this author starts his books, how he opens them, how he warms up. And that's a me thing. That's 100% a me thing. Because I didn't like the first third of the first book, and it was about the first third of this one I didn't care for either. Just the setting everything up, it dragged for me. So, story-wise, and again, we're going to be talking spoilers with these books. We're doing a reread, and these are foundational works in the modern werewolf. And although they weren't the only ones being put out at the time, they're still important, and I do want to talk about them. So if you haven't read them and you don't want to hear about spoilers, I'll put another card up to let you know when I'm done talking about the book. Don't let this spoil it for you, okay? Just read it for yourself. But if you have read it and you're ready to go, here we go. So in this book, we begin with Karen. And Karen has moved to Seattle. In the first one, she lived in LA. Now she's moved to Seattle. She's married. She married a widower, 20 years older than her. And this widower had a young son. And she stepped into this life. She married him and took on role of stepmother with this little boy. And it's strange. Not in a bad way. There is something I like about what Brandner did with this, because we could have done Deliriously Happy with this man. And the fact of the matter is she's not. Now, Karen in this book, she's only 28. She's still very young. And she's married to this 48-year-old, well-to-do man. And he works a job that makes them very comfortable. And she thinks he's sturdy. She thinks he's dependable. He's rock solid for her. But she's not crazy about this man. Maybe she loves him. See, even that, I'm not sure. She may love him, but she's comfortable with him. And in this book, even in this book, she's still uncomfortable with sex. She, at this point, she has many traumas she has to live with. I mean, let alone the first trauma she went through at the beginning of the first book. Now she is living with the trauma of, oh my God, there are werewolves and my ex-husband is now one. When we're talking about legalities, Roy Beatty's still alive, and we hear about that later. But she is just trying to exist. She's in this solid marriage that she's kind of bored, to be honest. She's seeing a therapist, and she's been very upfront with this husband and this therapist, she's told them, werewolves. I was attacked by werewolves. I escaped from an entire town peopled by werewolves. And they're very, yeah, and how do you feel about that? They think she suffered something traumatic and she filled in the holes with werewolves. They don't necessarily believe her, but they're also doing their best to support her. They're not bad people. I mean, honestly, how would you react if someone was like, werewolves? You'd be like, okay, I'm here to support you. What do you mean werewolves? But we come to learn that after the ending of the first book, where Roy's friend Chris Halloran makes the trip up to Drago and with his silver bullets, and he rescues Karen, they kind of run away together for a little bit. They do couple up, and because it's so stressful and because Karen specifically is so traumatized, it's not a great or long lasting coupling. I think they said it lasts about 6 months, and they leave on bad terms. Chris leaves her in Las Vegas, and Karen goes and stays with her parents. They live in Brentwood, which is kind of like part of the outskirts of LA, I think. I don't know the geography of that. I know that there are lots of names, and it, like, outsiders like us would be like, that's still kind of LA, isn't it? I don't know, but it's in that area. And she has a full-blown break while she's staying with her parents, and she needs a live-in nurse for a little while. But she comes out of it. She's able to kind of rescue herself. And she meets this man, and this man is very sturdy, very kind, very supportive. And she marries him and moves up to Seattle and starts this new life. And it's not working for her. And she goes to get a job because she wants to start working in hotels again. That's what she did in the first book. She was like a convention coordinator at a hotel. And lots of hotels in Seattle, she's like, why not? Let's go do this. And her husband has opinions about this, but she's like, look, I need to do this for myself. And she starts seeing someone's following her. So, cut away, we learn. In the first book, there's a showdown between Karen and Marcia, the woman who Roy cheats on her with. I don't want to say she stole Roy. Roy was up for the taking. Again, I don't like Roy. And we're going to talk about Roy a little bit later. There was a showdown where, in her wolf form, Marcia comes at Karen. And Karen has the gun with the silver bullets and shoots Marcia in the head. Well, we're led to believe she dies in the first book. Now, in the second book, Marcia is alive, but she has been damaged. And she has a white streak through her dark hair, and it seems like she can't transform fully. There's something else that she turns into, and she's very ashamed of it, and she won't let Roy see what she turns into. She kicks him out. But she's really fucking mad at Karen because of this. This took away a part of her that she considered central to her identity, and she's not happy, and she wants to get revenge. So she's got a plan, and she wants Roy to be in it with her. And the plan is they want to kill the little boy. Well, Karen is on edge. She's never been completely unclenched, I guess. She doesn't relax completely. And she starts getting this feeling that she's being watched, and she does. She notices them. And their plan is, let her see us. We want her to get scared. We want her to get paranoid, and then we'll pounce. And things just keep going wrong. I mean, I don't want to go into every detail, but they do attack. They miss the little boy. The little boy's okay. But Karen's like, I got to get out of here. You and, I think his name's Joey. You and Joey aren't safe with me here. I got to go. So she goes and stays with her parents. They follow her down there. And when she realizes she's not safe with her parents, she's like, I need help. Who is the only person who will believe me that I am being chased by werewolves? Who is the only person who can help me? Chris Halloran. And it takes her a little bit to find him, but she eventually does. He's on vacation in Mexico with a young woman, and it's funny because nobody wants to tell her where he's staying, and she's like, oh, for Christ's sake, he's a friend. I'm not his wife. You can tell me he's not alone. I just need to know what room he's in. That happens a couple times. It's funny. And she meets up with Chris, And of course he believes her. And he's like, okay, well, we got to have a plan. We got to fix this for you. And the werewolves follow her down to Mexico too. It's just the two werewolves in this. It's just Roy and Marcia. And there's a couple killings there. People help them. People don't help them. We've got a big gypsy aspect in this book, which I guess I don't hate the way they're used in this because the gypsies are such a tight network of people, they're information gatherers and they know about the werewolves and they know what the werewolves are capable of. So through fear, they are in service of Marcia and Roy. They're not happy about it by any stretch of the imagination, but they know what the stakes are, so they help how they can. That's how they always know where Karen is, because she's being watched by many eyes. It's just, there's a big showdown. Chris is able to find a silversmith to make him a knife. Not so much a dagger, think more hunting knife with a silver blade. And there's a big showdown, and Roy ends up being the one to face off with Chris, and Chris prevails, and Marcia has Karen tied up in a cabin or a hut or something and is going to slowly torture her, has hot pinchers and everything, but things go wrong and Marcia ends up being in a house fire and Karen gets out, and the book ends with Karen and Chris once again leaving behind a fire and being like, okay, we're okay now. So the things that I don't like about this book, and I want to go slow so that I can keep my things in place. I didn't like the beginning. It was interesting, but there's something about the pacing that I was annoyed. Another thing was there were inconsistencies with this book that kept pulling me out of the story. For instance, we're told that the goings-on of the first book, the amount of time that Karen is in the town of Drago, was 6 months. And I'm here to say, no, they weren't. Nuh-uh. They were not. I would believe more like 6 weeks. Maybe 8 weeks. 6 months? No, they weren't. They were not there that long. And I'm going to tell you why. This is my conspiracy theory. Usually I would tell you, don't foster this in me because I will live on Conspiracy Street. I will build a cabin right there and I will live there and I will drag you with me. Just follow me here. I think, and it's not just because I hate the character so much, but I really think, from reading the first book and this one, I really think Brandner wants me to like Roy. And in thinking that they were in the town of Drago for 6 months, rather than 6 weeks, it better explains his frustrations with Karen taking so long to get better. It better explains his frustrations with their sex life drying up. It better explains why he strayed. It gives you a chance to see more space and time in a certain place and why he would be so easily tempted. And no, they weren't there for 6 months, and I still don't like Roy. I don't like Roy in this book either, and I'll tell you why. Marcia has relied on him as she's getting better from the silver bullet. She's been very, very sick, and he has been her caretaker for a while. But now that she's better and now that she's ready to enact her revenge, she's relying on Roy to be her henchman. And Roy doesn't want to be that. He doesn't want to be with Karen anymore, but he still has feelings. There are feelings that he has where he's very angry that Karen and Chris hooked up. Like, he's really mad about that. So there are feelings there, but he's also he waffles a lot. He doesn't really want to kill Karen, but, Marcia will say, don't you want to love her? And he's like, oh, okay. He's just kind of pathetic, no backbone, despite the fact that he's like a badass werewolf. He's nothing. He's nothing but a indecisive idiot. And I don't like him. And even his death scene, he's blocking the path so that Chris can't get to Marcia and Karen. And he's in his werewolf form, big scary werewolf, and he leaves, and again, I think Brandner wants me to like Roy, and I don't. He leaves enough of a space in the fight for Chris to kill him. It's on purpose. And there is a part of you that's like, oh, you've just spent the entire book telling me how much he loves being a werewolf. Why is he doing this? Why is he trying to get away from Marcia? Like, I get that the bloom is off the rose with that relationship. Like, the sex is still hot, but they're not seeing eye to eye on this big thing. Why choose to die over that? I don't know. It felt just kind of flat and clunky. And even Marcia's end. So there's a lot of talk about Marcia and the thing that she turns into, and it's not human, it's not werewolf. She can't stop the change up at the full moon, and she wants to stop it because she's very ashamed of what it is. My guess is it's more like a wolf man or wolf woman as opposed to a full-on wolf, which is what they become. And she's ashamed of it, but we don't see it. She falls into an involuntary change while she's trying to torture Karen, but all we see is her writhing on the ground and fur sprouting from her skin. We don't see her stand up and show her shame. We don't see it because the fire engulfs her beforehand. And that's just kind of a letdown. Don't tease me with that and then not let me see it. Not a fan. And I just thought this story was just kind of a letdown. It didn't give me what I was hoping for. And I didn't like it. I was already tired of... Okay, so we got to talk about this really quick. You know how online there's this kind of meme that makes its way around of how male writers write women, and it's funny. And so Brandner didn't do this in the first book. It's obvious he favors women because you can tell by the way he describes them. But this book doesn't border on ridiculous. This book is a full-on citizen of ridiculous. Because, oh my God, with the how male writers write women. A woman in this book doesn't walk into a room. Her long, lithe body sensuously moves across the floor, showing off her flat stomach and perky breasts. And I'm not kidding. The phrase lithe body is in this book so often that it actually baffles me that an editor didn't red pen it and go, please stop writing this. It's in there so much, but it is ridiculous. And at the heart of this book, a story is being told, and I don't know if this is on purpose, but it's annoying. Whether it's on purpose or not, it's annoying. It's about two women fighting with Karen over men that Karen doesn't want. Like, regardless of her feelings for Chris and Roy, she wants to go back to her husband. And Marcia is fighting with Karen over Roy. She's mad about the gunshot, but she's also, like, very, very territorial over Roy. And she knows that Roy might still have feelings, and that pisses her off, something awful. And then there's this character named Audrey. She's this young woman that's vacationing with Chris. And Audrey is immediately jealous, and it's just like, Karen is just like, no, I just need his help. This isn't romantic. Get off my back. And it's just this... It's a little bit stupid, a little bit just... Could we have told another story where it isn't women fighting over men? And what makes it even dumber is, again, these are men Karen's done with. Karen doesn't want this. Karen just wants the werewolves to leave her alone. I didn't like the book. Just... Luckily, it was short. It was a short read. It was kind of... I don't know, it was kind of disappointing. I don't want you to think I hated every second of it. That's not true. Especially the parts where she was going from California to Mexico looking for Chris, and then finding Chris, and Chris going through all of this to find a knife. He does action very well. He builds tension very well. It's very well done. I just, the way it ended, I think the ending kind of ruined the preceding action for me, because it did just kind of fall flat for me. Of course, I'm interested in hearing if you have differing views, because it's just me. I've got high hopes for the next one. Am I wrong? I still think they go to Eastern Europe at one point. And also, I could have sworn at some point Karen does get bitten. I could have sworn. This is a thing where I keep getting the movies mixed up with the books, and I could be wrong, but at this point, Karen is not a werewolf. Karen is still human, just trying to live her life. So, with that out of the way, card. Now I want to talk about the movie. And something weird happened last night. I invited my youngest son, my 12-year-old son, to come and watch a movie with me last night. It's almost always a no, because he's just not a horror fan. He's definitely not a werewolf fan. He likes, The Conjuring, loves Annabelle. Those are his speed. He loves the movie The Fog, which is great. That's a classic. But it's usually a no. And he surprised me last night and was like, yeah, I'll come watch a movie with you. I tried to warn him, this is a Tubi movie. They're bad. And, we had to talk about the appeal of the bad movie, laughing through it and laughing at it. So we watched a movie called Lone Wolf. It came out in 1988. And let me tell you, this movie was charming. This movie was really entertaining. It did help that I had someone there with me and we could laugh about things, but also, if I'd watched this by myself, I still would have enjoyed this movie. This movie does a good job with the mystery aspect of who's the werewolf, right? And they don't tell you till the damn well very end. You pretty much know who it is before then. They funnel down who the prospective people could be, but it's well done. It's a cheap movie. The costume, they tried. They tried. And they don't show it too much because it is not great, but you gotta respect. The funniest thing this movie did was, I've talked before about how much I love how werewolf movies will show the full moon. I love it. I even love what they did here, and just bear with me. They took a ball and painted it to look like the moon, and set it on a black and white background, and filmed it to look like the moon. And it looked like they filmed it in black and white to make it look like the full moon. I don't think we were supposed to know it's a ball, but it's a ball. It's like one of those bouncy balls that they sell at the grocery store. The brightly colored ones that have that intoxicating vinyl PVC smell to them. The ones I'm talking about? It's one of those. And they painted it to look like the moon. And I laughed way too much on it. But it was completely entertaining. Totally recommend. After this, the kid was like, "Are you going to watch another one?" And I thought, let's see if he'll bite on one of the classics. So, because it is taking up a large chunk of my life right now, I was like, let's watch The Howling, the Joe Dante one. And there were a couple of parts where he had to cover his eyes, obviously. If you've seen the movie, you know what ones I'm talking about. But he kind of dropped off. His full attention was not on this movie. And, I'm used to this. I'm used to werewolves just not being everybody's bag. Kind of disappointing, because you want to share your passions with your kids, but I also get it. He did find the part, though, at the very end, after Karen transforms and after they shoot her, the people behind the scenes are going, switch to commercial. So they just shot a werewolf on live TV, and they switched to a dog food commercial, which is just Joe Dante being Joe Dante. We love it, but the kid found it funny. And it's charming. It was charming to see him charmed by the little things. And what more can we say, right? So, small announcement. I will finish the trilogy next week. I'll read the third book and do the movie thing. But after that, I need to take a 1-week break, because there's something on my plate work-wise right now that I have to finish. It's kind of a big task. and it's going to take a lot of time, and I it's kind of stressing me the fuck out right now. I need to get it off my plate, out of my hair. So I'll take 1 week off to finish that, but then I'll be back. I got a stack of books here to read and talk about, and the world is full of werewolf movies to talk about. So that'll be it this week. I want to thank you for always being here, for always leaving comments and recommendations, and I hope the world is treating you well. But that'll be it for me this week, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.